Good afternoon, beauty people. This afternoon, I want to talk to you about fabric wraps. That includes silk wraps, fiberglass wraps, tissue wraps, wrap resin accelerator, and how you should care for your fabric wraps when you receive that service or when you're actually doing the service. Now, in my next video, I'll be demonstrating how to do fabric wraps. But I encourage you guys to please watch my videos to the end, because that's when a lot of valuable information will help you to understand when I'm doing the demo. So when you're doing the demonstration or when you're doing this service on people, you'll understand what I'm telling you or what I'm trying to teach you. But first, I want to thank you so much for your support. Thank you for watching my videos. God bless you. And let's get started. Okay, so fabric wraps are a covering that you would place on the nail. We used to also call them mending fabrics. So in other words, if someone had a crack in their nail plate, and let's say the crack goes so far down or even on the edge of their nail plate, and they don't want to start snagging their hair, but they don't want to cut their nail down because they're trying to grow their nails out, what you could do is cut a sliver of the fabric that you're going to use, and you would lay it over the crack, apply resin, you let that dry, and you would buff it in, and then you would apply your top coat or gel top coat, whatever it is you're using. And that is called a mending fabric, where it is mending that crack together until the nail grows out. And so you don't have to worry about the crack going any further back on the nail plate to where it gets down to the nail bed where it can be painful. And you don't have to worry about your nails snagging in your hair where you have to cut your nail off, right? But you can also use that to cover the entire nail plate if you're just trying to grow your nails out and strengthen them without applying acrylics. Now, of course, acrylics out of all your nail enhancements are the strongest. Fabric wraps would be considered the weakest. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through all the fabric wraps, at least what's in your textbook. I'm sure someone else has played around with some material. I remember my old coworker, her and her husband had made a fabric wrap using parachute material. But then when I tried it on the nails, it didn't stay on the nails. So there's different material you can play around with, I'm sure. But that's what it's used for. Okay, the first fabric wrap that we're going to talk about is silk, which silk wraps are what I'm going to demonstrate for you next time on my mom. So I brought a kit, and the actual name is Sheba Nails. I've never played around with them before. I've always gotten my silk from Sally's, really, where you could buy it pre-cut, which this one here is what the pre-cut looks like. So that way you don't have to worry about cutting it out yourself. Otherwise, you would buy it in a pack and it looks like this. This is not silk here. This is in paper, but I'm just showing you an example. It would come in the pack like this. And so there's a trick to that. I really should have brought that too, so I could show you how you could do it. Maybe next time I'll show you that. But you would have to place the fiber up on the finger, and then you would cut out around about how big that is. Then you would fit it again to the nail, and it actually is an adhesive on it. It's a sticker. But once you peel that off and stick it to the nail, then that's when you do your next steps, right? I prefer pre-cut because it's already done, but I can do the one where you cut it out yourself also. Silk is a thin covering and the weave is tight. So when it explains that to you, what that means is because it's tightly woven, you have more strength, right? Now, please keep in mind that these are the weaker enhancements for nails, right? But this is when you're trying to grow your nails out, if you want it to last, although you're using a resin, because the weave is tighter, it should last longer, right? All right, so the next one is fiberglass, which I think I mentioned I was always taught that fiberglass was stronger than silk, but then in the textbook it says total opposite. Now I get the whole weave thing, the tighter the weave, the stronger. In this case, fiberglass is a synthetic mesh and the weave is looser. So technically it would be weaker. But my thinking is, since it's a synthetic mesh, is it really weaker? Fiberglass. All right, so the next one is paper wraps. You would use a thin tissue like end papers here, and I actually have a dear friend who has done that for years, and I'm not sure if she uses the actual end papers, but I know she uses a tissue as a wrap, and her nails are gorgeous and they're strong. So basically that's what you would be doing. Same thing, the same application type, and it meshes in to the nail. So it's not really, well, yeah, it meshes into the nail, not down to the nail bed. But once you apply that resin, you just see it melt onto the nail. And if you do it correct, you do not see it on that nail at all. And then you care for it like every 2 weeks and every 4 weeks, which I'm going to describe to you later, how you would upkeep your fabric wraps. So tissue wrap. The next material we have is linen wraps, which, like I said, I've never played around with linen wraps. It's a type of material that's heavy and tightly woven, which means it would be stronger. So I'm sure someone somewhere has played around. So if you have, just text me in the comments and let me know how it works for you. Linen wraps. The next product that I want to talk about is a wrap resin accelerator, which I explained earlier comes in kits sometimes. So not all, but some. Like for instance, if I wish I had a pack to show you, but maybe next time. The pack that comes like from Sally's, you just get the silk. So it does not come with a resin or a wrap resin accelerator. So a wrap resin accelerator, you could look at it as, I call it a catalyst, which if you learn chemistry in the textbook, a catalyst is a chemical that helps another chemical accelerate faster or speed up its process. So in other words, when I apply resin to the nail, I would mist the accelerator onto the nail. And this acts as an activator, as a catalyst that would help speed up the drying process for the resin, right? So in other words, it's going to help it to dry faster. So we'll see how that works. I know I've played around with some other kits. Is it, oh my God, it starts with an I. I can't remember the name of it, but I see it as clear as day, and it's in a green packaging. And I remember I used to teach with that. I wasn't a fan of that one too well, but you would apply it and you would mist it and you could almost instantly see the resin drying. So that just helps to make your service go faster. That's what you want to do. The last thing that I want to tell you guys about is how to upkeep your wraps. So there is a 2-week service and then there's a 4-week service. The 2-week service, you're buffing in the cuticle area, right? So that means it's grown out a little and you have that little gap there. So all you're doing is buffing in the cuticle area and you're applying your resin there. You let that dry and you buff it in, and that should fill in for 2 weeks. Then in the 4-week service, you buff that area in the cuticle area. You cut out a little sliver of your fabric that you're going to use. You apply it in the cuticle area, and then you apply your resin, let that dry, buff it. Oh, and one more thing that I wanted to tell you guys is you can do up to 3 layers of your fabric wrap. So that I did not tell you about, because you can do what's called overlays. So there's silk overlays, fiberglass overlays. Anytime you hear the term overlay, that means that in that service, there's an artificial nail tip involved and you are overlaying that nail tip with something. So acrylic overlays means you're doing a tip with acrylic overlaying it. Silk overlays means you're doing a tip with silk overlaying it. In that case, you would do up to 3 layers when you're covering a tip. On the natural nail, you really don't want to do that many layers. You do between 1 to 2 layers. So that's one more thing I wanted to tell you. So again, a recap, you have fiberglass, you have tissue, you have silk wraps, which I'm going to demonstrate to you, and you have linen wraps, which I've never played around with. So remember, if you have, let me know how that worked for you and any pros or cons to working with linen. You know about wrap resin accelerator, which is a catalyst to help speed up the process of your resin drying. And then you have your 2-week and your 4-week nail care. 2 weeks, you buff the cuticle, you fill it in with the resin, and then you continue on for 2 more weeks. The 4-week service, you would cut out a piece of fabric and you would fill in that cuticle area, apply your resin, and then go on from there. And then after that, one of the most important things too, the way that you remove your nail wraps, just like any other artificial enhancement usually, is by soaking it off with an acetone. So can you use nail polish remover? Yes, you can. I'm not against it. But if you really want it to come off faster, pure acetone is your best bet. Not the kind from Home Depot. Nail acetone we're talking about. Pure acetone, you would soak it. You can apply cotton saturated with acetone, place it on top and wrap foils around. Or they have these little nail cups where you pour acetone in, place your fingers in there. Usually with silk wraps, maybe in about 10 minutes, you'll see the wrap floating off. So they come off pretty easily, a little bit faster, a lot faster than acrylics. And that's all that I have for you all. So see you next time. Bye, guys.